I'm Miriam Coleman and I am the Tasmanian President of Women's Chiefs of Enterprises International. And as you can see, I've got a cup of tea and a biscuit, and it's really great that you're here with me. And if you would like to go and grab a cup of tea, you can hit pause and come back and join me, because I have been on the most extraordinary adventure. I went to an international congress of women entrepreneurs. I was in the room with over 500 people, and there's some things I'd love to share with you. As you can see, I've got this gorgeous notebook, and it was gifted to me by this beautiful woman, Amanda Jones. And I took it with me, and I love the bright colour because it meant I could find it in my handbag. And this travelled with me to Athens, because it was really important that I got some notes down. And so I'm going to refer to some of my notes in here, and I hope you don't mind that I do that, and I'll look down every now and then, because I don't want you to miss everything that I would really love to share with you. So let's start to the first point. So where did I go? I went to Athens and I attended the 72nd FCEM World Congress. Now, if you don't know what FCEM stands for, you are about to experience my most beautiful French accent. And it stands for Femmes Chefs d'Entreprise Mondiales. So it's Women Chiefs of Enterprises International. Now, this organisation was formed 80 years ago in 1945, and it came from at the end of the Second World War, and it was founded by a woman. Her name is Yvonne Fonant. I think that's how I pronounce it. And over those 80 years, FCEM has collaborated and welcomed women in over 120 countries, 5 continents, and I think there's about 5 million women who are all connected. And Women's Chiefs of Enterprises International is part of that beautiful community. So that's where I went. It was held in Athens. It was the 72nd, so there's been others. And the first one that I attended was in Sydney, so that was the 71st, and that was in 2024. That was such an incredible event that, as one of our wonderful women, Di Thompson, says, once you drink from the Kool-Aid, you always want to drink the Kool-Aid. And so I knew that I had to attend another one. And I want to share with you some of the things that I learned that resonated with me, but also a little bit about my experience and what that means for me as a member of Women's Chiefs, but also as a member of a global community. So the first thing I want to share with you was actually the opening of the Congress. And these words resonated with me so strongly, and I think they will with you too. And what was said was that you are the daughter of the pioneers, and you are the leader of the next chapter. And you can actually hear how much that really impacted me, because we are, and you are. And so that's how it started. And when I heard those words come towards me as I was sitting there amongst all of these extraordinary women, I knew that I was in for a really, really special event. So that was the opening to an extraordinary couple of days in a room with over 500 women. It was absolutely fabulous. And I really want you to have a bit of a think about that, about the women that came before us, the 80 years of FCEM, and the women that are going to come after us as well, because we are the leaders of the next chapter. Now, what I struggled with in this is that I've got all of these chicken scratchings in this notebook, because the people that were presenting, the women that were presenting, were extraordinary. And for me, traveling all the way from the other side of the world, it was really important that I immersed myself into that moment. I wanted to be so present. And so sometimes that meant I didn't take really great notes, but I've got some that I'm going to share with you. I'm a data girl. I love data and I love information. So some of the things I'm going to share with you, maybe you already know. And maybe like me, you maybe perhaps had an intuition of it, you had a sense of it, but didn't really understand the extent of it. And so some of the data that I want to share with you are some of the statistics that were talked about throughout the couple of days. First of all, what I found interesting was that this statistic was actually presented in a real positive way, and that is that 1 in 10 startups are started by women. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about the other 9, because they're all being started by men. But the thing is, it was only back in 2022, 0.6%. So we are increasing, but we've got a bit of way to go. The other thing that really surprised me in terms of global venture capital, only 2.35% of the entire global capital, venture capital, and I have no idea how big that number is, but I imagine it's quite large. Guess how much is actually attributed to women founders of organisations? And when you think of that number, I want you to halve it. And when you think of that number, I want you to halve it again, because I'm going to share with you, it is a whopping 2.35%. That shocked me. Okay, so 1 in 10 startups are women, and we only have access to 2.35% of the venture capital. And this is a common theme that came up, right? Because the common theme that I heard, and maybe it's my financial background, is the financial barriers to women in terms of financial resources, access to affordable finance, financial literacy, which was something that really surprised me, and then it didn't. And so again, my mind's thinking, how can I help in this space? But also that there's policy bias by banking institutions and financial institutions and policy, and that surprised me as well. And the other thing that I want to share with you is that 62% of women in business are using their personal savings to start up their business and fund their business. And I don't know about you, but that is risky business. And I also don't know about you, when I think about that and the number of businesses that have failed, there's a woman that has drawn down all of her personal savings and may have actually put herself at financial risk. And that really sits with me as a concern. But here's a fantastic statistic that really excited me, is that 45% of women businesses are now led by women under the age of 35. Hallelujah, they are coming. And it's because of women like yourself who have stood up and shown the way that we've got this younger generation coming through. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Marie-Christine Oakley is our global president for FCEM, and she is a powerhouse, and I've had the blessing of spending some time with this woman. She's extraordinary, and she was speaking to us and asked this rhetorical question, because it had to be rhetorical, right? And the question was, what would the world be, what would the business world be without women? And her answer was, it would be a disaster. And you can imagine that there's over 500 women in this room and they're all having a collective laugh about that. But it was so important to me, it even made it into the notebook and it got highlighted, because I just thought that was just such a classic quote. But what I want to share with you now is going back to FCEM in the 80 years. Because we heard from one of the most extraordinary speakers, Carol, who is the president of the French division, talked to us about their reflections of the 80 years. And so the questions that they asked themselves was, who have we become? What is our contribution? And I love this one. This is really good. How far do we want to go? How cool's that? So what they've done is that with those 3 questions, they've actually redefined the women entrepreneur into 3 key points. The first one, we're agents of change. We are an influential force in the economy, and we are a source of inspiration for future generations. And that really struck a chord with me. And that speech, it impacted me so greatly that I actually asked for the transcription of that. And I have that with me, and I'll refer to it a little bit later on in my following points. Another thing that made it into the notebook, which really excited me, particularly when we're talking about taking action and no longer talking, was a partnership that's being formed between FCEM, and there's two ways I heard this being pronounced. I heard it pronounced the European way, which is UNIDO, and another way I've heard it pronounced is UNIDO. And so you're probably wondering what is UNIDO or UNIDO, and it's the United Nations International Development Organisation, and their purpose is to help small and medium-sized businesses gain access to markets. And FCEM and UNIDO have formed a partnership and wanting to start breaking down those barriers that we've been talking about. And the first step that we heard about on stage, which was really, really exciting, is that they're really interested in women-led businesses that are using and harnessing digital innovation, that are working towards being part of the circular economy, but also have a really strong connection to sustainability. Now, I don't know about you, but I think here in Tassie in Australia, we don't really sort of hear too much about the sustainability and the circular economy. We hear snippets of it, but in Europe, it's huge and it's a really, really strong theme. And that's why that is forming first part of the action, which is to develop a global white book of all the women-led organisations that are working in the circular economy and are working towards sustainability. Now, I did a little bit of research because that's what I like to do, and I went on to the World Bank data because I was really curious to know, well, you know, what is the percentage or how many women-led organisations are there in Tasmania and Australia? And so up on the screen comes a world map, and it shows you like a heat map of the percentage of women-led businesses in these countries. And have a guess what it is for Australia. Yeah, I can't guess either because there was no data. There was no data for Australia, and I thought that's really interesting. There must be some data out there somewhere, and I don't know about you, but I've got a bit of a curious mind, and maybe you might want to join me and we start finding out. But the first step is this white book, and that has already started because you may have already received an email in your inbox asking you to contribute and register your business. And that's really exciting. So that is action in motion, in real time, and it's really exciting. And I'm looking forward to where that partnership leads to into the future. Another thing that really resonated so strongly with me is that we have moved on beyond asking permission. We are not seeking recognition, we already have it. And that was such an incredible sharing. And I went, yeah, that's right. We don't need to ask for permission anymore, but we don't need to get there and say, can I take a seat at the table? We have a seat at the table. We actually go, I'm taking my seat, thanks. And in the conversations, it was around the power of collective action and the ability for us as a collective to make a difference. And so what I heard at this conference was enough talking, it's time for action. And I heard those words, and of course, Mim goes, well, what's that going to look like? Okay, I'm absolutely with you. I'm done with talking. I'm all about action. I am an agent for change. That has where I've spent my last 30 years in my career is in change. So absolutely, I'm all up for enough talking and time for action. And so we heard from some extraordinary women, and I'm just going to look down at my notes to share some points with you because they were important. And again, if they made it into the notebook, they were really, really important. So first of all, women in politics, we're still underrepresented in that sphere. And so having women in politics, to have the women's female voice heard is really, really important. Women in NGOs is also equally as important. And women in business, women like you and I, is really, really important. But we need to go together if we're doing any sort of change, because the world is changing and we need to do it together. And another thing, of course, is being able to have access to resources. So again, that theme of those barriers for women kept on coming up, and getting access to those resources. What do we need to change? And it came from a policy perspective. What I really liked was a lady by the name of Elvira who shared that equality is no longer a side issue, right? It's not a sidebar anymore. It's front of house, and we need to really get there and put our energy towards that. And the importance of being able to listen to women's issues, because women, to have influence, we can do that at a local level. And that was one thing that was really interesting to me. If you're wondering, how on earth can I get there and impact change globally? The message was that to start at the local level. That's where your power can be, at that local level, particularly around gender equality. Because you know where there isn't gender equality, but it's really important that we can start at a community level, because by doing that, you are influencing global. So your local networks are really, really powerful, okay? Again, that common theme of access to resources and understanding finances. But there was one part that really intrigued me, and it was a research study on women in STEM. And again, highlighted and made notes about this, because the study was around, well, we've got more women going into STEM, more young women going into STEM, and of course it wasn't a surprise to me that, you know, we get better, we score really well, we do really well in that area. But what's going on is that once they've qualified, they're disappearing after graduation. And so they were asking, you know, what are the barriers for women to stay in STEM? And here's what came out: access to female role models, access to female mentors, and access to female networks. And that's not just for STEM. I'm positive it's not only in STEM. So if you're thinking about how can I have an impact in my local community, have a think about how you could be a role model, how you could be a mentor, and how can you open up or even create networks for women in business. So that was really, really powerful for me. I have a really strong belief. You know, as women entrepreneurs and leading in business, we show up with really strong backs. You know, we're leading the way, we're dealing with all the tough stuff, we're managing everything because we are strong. We have a strong back. But we also have a soft front. And that soft front is our vulnerability. That soft front is something that we don't expose very often. And what I love about Women's Chiefs, and something that is really important to me, is that we have a safe space to expose the soft front, because we all know we have the strong back. But it's when we share this that we really deepen and actually make ourselves even stronger by exposing it. And we do that locally, but at the same time, there is this extraordinary global network of women with strong backs and soft fronts, and we're safe locally and we're safe globally because we belong. We belong to each other. We're connected. And so, out of this Congress, I heard these words, and I want to share them with you, is that we have the capacity and the capability for great change, to influence great change. But we need to ensure that we do that by making sure that she, you, myself, and every other woman is never standing alone. And that's my promise to you. You'll never stand alone. So if you're thinking, well, should I go to Congress? My question to you is, if you ever wanted to drink the Kool-Aid, then absolutely come to Congress. It's where you can take local and experience it globally. And at the same time, you will hear and see global influence and be able to bring that back into local. And that is really, really special, to be part of something where you can influence at a local level. So come to Congress, but also every Congress has the post-Congress tours. Now, if you're wondering, is it worth the money doing those post-Congress tours? Let me share a story with you, because it was so extraordinary. Now, the Mexican contingency, when they come to Congress, are larger than life. You know, I thought Aussies were pretty gregarious, but I tell you what, the Mexicans are next level. They come dressed in the same clothes, they pick a theme every year, and they're just absolutely amazing. Great personalities, great energy. And I decided to join a post-Congress tour, and it was on that tour, there was this woman sitting at the back of the bus, and she was on her own. Nobody knew her name, nobody knew who she was. There was a few of us that knew each other because friendships formed over the congresses. And so people were reconnecting, but there was this lady sitting up the back. And what happened is that sit next to the lady, sit opposite her at lunch, ask who she is, start talking to her. And what I found out was absolutely fascinating. Not only is her business extraordinary, but you know what she did? She wanted to have a really different experience. She wanted to do a post-Congress tour, but not the same one that all of her colleagues were going to. She didn't want to go and explore that. She wanted to go and explore this area on a bus with a whole heap of strangers. And you know what? She didn't even tell them that she was going on this tour. And I found that absolutely extraordinary. To have that courage to do that, to join a bus full of strangers. And you know what? She now has 20 friends from all around the world who are staying in contact with her. That is the power of Congress. Not necessarily the fabulous speeches and the insights that you learn, as powerful and as valuable as they are. It is the connections. So come to Congress, join a post-Congress tour, and you will make friends for life with women who are just so extraordinary, because we are extraordinary. As you can see, I'm wiping the tears away because authenticity, as we know, is really important. But you know what? I couldn't be sharing this with you if it wasn't for the amazing woman on the other side of that camera who offered to capture this for me and for you. And so a beautiful, big, heartfelt thank you to you, Amanda Jones. You are extraordinary, beautiful, and I love you so much. And thank you for sharing your strong back and your soft front.